1 second. Just getting set up here. So, hello. It is Friday, January 13, 11:35 a.m. in Honolulu, Hawaii, and we're about to do another extreme programming session. And by extreme, I mean that in an emotional way and in the Wikipedia definition, which is probably a lot less awesome, but nonetheless, still a good idea to look up. So, extreme programming. I haven't heard this word in a little while, but early 2000s I was hearing this word a lot. And I probably have some misconceptions about it. But basically it's when more than one person sits down and programs at one computer. And I bet it ended up being not so productive, or people just get tired of each other, probably. Programmers not being the most social people by default. Yeah, see? Extreme programming apparently has a much larger meaning, and that's not surprising. But the first, the first of the other elements is the code review, unit testing, and programming in pairs. And I mean, I guess that's the part we're focusing on here. We're also, yeah, by having stuff on the screen, it gives you some impetus to write. You have more liability. Your street cred's on the line. And I must say, I write code for a bunch of different groups and people and companies. I only put my own stuff on the screen, or stuff that's open source. And that being said, the style in which I program is pretty different for each one of those. And if nobody's watching and I'm doing some art project and I just write a bunch of code, I do the hack-in/slash copy and paste style of coding, and that can be pretty damn ugly, but it gets you your result often quite quickly. What I'm doing here is a little bit in the middle of that. This is pretty much my own code. I mean, it is my own code. And I'm sharing code between different classes and such, and I use copy and paste, but I'm cleaning things up a little bit. And going back to the street cred thing, I've been a little bit curious why there aren't more live streaming of programming. And the first time I thought about this, I thought, yeah, it's probably pretty boring. But then I started casting my Japanese studies online. You can look that up at JLPTN1 if you're interested in learning slightly intermediate advanced level Japanese. It's a Japanese stream. And I did that just for myself because I was going over these flashcards, and I found it helpful. Sometimes I don't want to think and I just want to watch something. Yeah, kind of like how TV is. But I'd like that to be educational, so I'm not doing something completely unproductive. And I needed to cram for this test. I had a test in maybe 2 months coming up. It was pretty big. So I would do these flashcards, and those flashcards, making the flashcards is half if not more of the benefit of the flashcard system. So I would look up a bunch of things and enter the kanji characters and the definitions on the back side of the flashcard using an online program that I would screencast, and then go over these. And it was very helpful just to watch myself going over and speaking out loud, hearing myself, my thought process, to reinforce these mnemonic devices that I come up with. And I probably failed the test. That was in December, but I think I would have failed it by a lot more if I hadn't done that. And yeah, the main reason I was taking tests was so I could study hard. I didn't have like a job depending on that certification, but it really was a good experience. So I thought, why not just try that with programming and see what happens? Another interesting thing is I can't go and check my email in the middle of this cast because this is a public public stream. And eventually I would like to, right now I'm using a script that I made to constantly upload things automatically to YouTube and number them. But I'm thinking about now just also putting up on Twitch TV or Justin.tv, like I used to do with some StarCraft games. Anyway, that's enough talking about the meta screencast. Let's dive into the code now. So I'm guessing if you're watching this, you're probably a programmer and you deal with the iPhone. It's been a while since I talked about why I'm using Emacs, but basically I prefer Emacs to the new Xcode 4 editor. I'm more familiar with Xcode 3. I've been using Xcode since it was called Project Builder, and that was quite a while ago. And then there's Xcode 2, and 3 felt very comfortable for me, and I just switched over to 4, and it's the biggest change out of all of those, definitely. Everything is weird and different. My favorite shortcuts no longer work. And I'm on a very slow computer. This is the Mac I'm programming on is, I don't know what it's probably like well, I know it's a Core Duo processor from 2006 or 2005 maybe. And I like programming on old computers actually. This one's not that old. I mean, computers have been getting twice as fast every 2 years. As you know, that's the misinterpretation of Moore's law. We are getting twice the transistor density, but the speed thing, clock speed, no longer increases twice every 2 years. So, yeah, Emacs is great for slow computers, and I'm actually screencasting from my Linux box. That's another thing. I have a much bigger screen on the Linux box. Yeah, I could plug the Mac in, but my screencast setup, I prefer to do that on Linux because I've got the tools already all set up. And I really like Emacs. I know how to hop around in different files really quick. And with the slow computer, like even if I want to search for something and type Command F, depending on the state of the machine, it could take like 3 seconds sometimes to pop something up. Sometimes with Xcode, there's these long, there's these perceptual, what's that called? Something that seems a noticeable delay. And once that happens, I will start thinking about the delay and lose my train of thought. But in Emacs, generally, if I type Control-S, it'll immediately pop up the search box on the bottom. Because there's no GUI weird change, but the new Xcode pops up these sub-panels and translucent thingamabobs that looks like my computer needs a while to think about. Yeah, and I can have the screen real estate, I feel, is a lot better with Emacs. So I might change back to Xcode in the future once I get a little more comfortable with it. But I think it's going to take a little while. And I do a lot of other projects in good old Emacs. So let's go to our to-do list. And that's here. Basically, we have to attach things to collisions. I could run the app, but I've already showed it. It's just you can speak into the microphone and a shooting object will pop out, and it'll hit another wall which corresponds to an effect. And we've defined the structure for effects now, but we haven't made the behavior so that it takes in that input voice sound and processes it and spits it out as the new process sound. So we're going to implement that part today. And the way we do this, there's several things that happen now. I'm going to go and draw some things. I find that drawing really helps, even if it's on one of these crappy little, well, this is actually a really good paint app, even though it can be a bit clunky at times. Even though it's in my crappy drawing, within my crappy drawing ability, I guess, it's still really helpful. Pen and paper, I mean, for a while I was only using pen and paper to do something, like sketch something out, like using the big. When you work at a company, they always give you unlimited stationery supplies, if they're not totally broke. And I would always write on a big yellow notepad, but I don't have the desk space anymore to do that. I find with all the devices that I'm picking up and my keyboard and my hand rest for the keyboard and the microphone and all that, it's too much of a pain, so I just prefer doing this now. So getting back to what we were going to implement. Okay, we have to write the steps. So for collision, yeah, text is not, I don't know if there's a text tool. I don't think so. That's the only thing this guy's really missing. But yeah, for collision detection, we have some object, and this is the pre-collision, and we have some box for our effect. So once this and this contains voice input from the microphone. Once this object collides with our effect box, and this is on the screen, I'm talking about, these aren't conceptual things, this is actually the iPhone display. Once this box collides, collision, we want to do several things. This is the event we're looking for. Yeah, we don't need the one there. One is to remove this. Not quite. First, we have to transfer the audio. So this voice contains audio somewhere in it, this voice entity. If you think this handwriting is messy, it's actually about as good as my real handwriting, so maybe a little slower. Transfer audio. Then we want to remove this guy because it's about to be transformed into a different entity. Remove this guy. Then, so we've sent the audio, so it's more like 1, 2. We've sent the audio to the effect class. The effect class processes it in some thread or something, some update call. But at the same time, it immediately spits